From the British general behind Britain's most humiliating defeat, to the commander whose mistakes nearly handed North Africa to Rommel, to the officer many historians believe would have led Britain's most important army to disaster. These are the 5 worst British generals of World War II. The general at number 1 made a mistake so significant that Britain may have been fortunate he never got the chance to command in battle. Chapter 5. Sir Alan Cunningham. By late 1941, Britain desperately needed a victory in North Africa. Erwin Rommel's Africa Corps had pushed British forces across the desert and surrounded the strategic port of Tobruk. To break the siege, Britain launched Operation Crusader, placing Lieutenant General Sir Alan Cunningham in command of the 8th Army. On paper, Cunningham had the resources to succeed. British Commonwealth forces outnumbered the Axis in tanks and manpower, and the offensive offered the Allies their best chance yet to regain the initiative. But almost immediately, things began to unravel. Rommel launched aggressive counterattacks that created confusion across the battlefield. Convinced the offensive had failed, Cunningham quickly lost confidence. Just days into the operation, he urged his superior, General Claude Auchinleck, to halt the attack and withdraw. Auchinleck refused. Instead, he removed Cunningham from command and appointed Major General Neil Ritchie to continue the offensive. The decision proved crucial. Despite heavy fighting, Operation Crusader ultimately succeeded. Tobruk was relieved after more than 8 months under siege, and Rommel was forced to retreat deep into Libya, marking Britain's first major land victory against the Africa Corps. Had Cunningham's recommendation been followed, that victory might never have happened. To be fair, Cunningham wasn't an incompetent officer. Earlier in the war, he had led a successful campaign against Italian forces in East Africa. But commanding a fast-moving desert campaign against Rommel demanded a different kind of leadership. When the pressure mounted, Cunningham lost faith before the battle had truly been decided. His removal ended his time leading Britain's most important field army. Cunningham lost his command after only a few days. The next general stayed in command much longer and oversaw one of Britain's most painful defeats in the Western Desert. Chapter 4. Neil Ritchie. When Alan Cunningham was removed from command, Britain needed someone to keep the offensive alive. That man was Lieutenant General Neil Ritchie. Unlike most army commanders, Ritchie had never led a corps in combat before taking command of the 8th Army. Despite his limited experience, General Claude Auchinleck believed he had the potential to lead Britain's largest force in North Africa. At first, things went well. Operation Crusader ended in victory, Tobruk was finally relieved, and Rommel was forced to retreat across Libya. But success didn't last. In May 1942, Rommel launched a new offensive at the Battle of Gazala. Using speed, deception, and aggressive armored tactics, the Africa Corps outmaneuvered British forces and threw the 8th Army into confusion. Ritchie struggled to respond. Communication between his headquarters and frontline units broke down, and British formations often fought without clear coordination. As the situation worsened, Rommel captured the heavily fortified port of Tobruk in just a single day. Nearly 33,000 Allied troops were taken prisoner, making it one of Britain's worst defeats of the war. The loss stunned Winston Churchill, who later described it as one of the heaviest blows Britain had suffered during the conflict. Soon after, Auchinleck dismissed Ritchie and personally took command of the 8th Army. To be fair, Ritchie faced one of the greatest battlefield commanders of the war in Erwin Rommel. He also dealt with equipment shortages, exhausted troops, and constant pressure from London. But commanding an army means adapting when everything starts going wrong. When Britain's most important campaign reached its critical moment, Ritchie couldn't stop the collapse. Rehook Neil Ritchie's failures cost Britain one of its greatest fortresses in North Africa. But the next general lost something even bigger, an island that Churchill believed was nearly impossible to defend, yet whose fall became one of the war's most controversial defeats. Chapter 3. Arthur Percival. By early 1942, the British stronghold of Singapore was considered one of the most important bases in the empire. Many believed it was impossible to capture. Lieutenant General Arthur Percival was the man responsible for defending it. On paper, his position looked strong. British, Indian, Australian, and local forces together numbered more than 80,000 troops, outnumbering the Japanese invasion force. But numbers alone don't win battles. The Japanese advanced down the Malay Peninsula with incredible speed, using bicycles, light tanks, and constant air attacks to overwhelm British defenses. As they pushed south, Percival repeatedly withdrew his forces, hoping to preserve his army for the final defense of Singapore. Instead, the retreat gave the Japanese momentum. Once they reached the island, the fighting quickly turned against the defenders. Japanese artillery and aircraft dominated the battlefield, while Singapore's water supply came under threat. With civilian casualties rising and ammunition running low, Percival faced an impossible decision. On February 15, 1942, he surrendered. More than 80,000 British Commonwealth troops became prisoners of war, the largest surrender in British military history. The defeat sent shockwaves across the world. Prime Minister Winston Churchill later called it the worst disaster and largest capitulation in British history. To be fair, Percival inherited serious problems. British forces lacked AIR superiority, many units were poorly trained, and Japanese commanders consistently outmaneuvered the defenders throughout the Malayan campaign. But critics argue Percival failed to organize an effective defense and surrendered, while parts of his force were still capable of fighting. Whether the outcome could have been changed remains debated. What isn't debated is that Singapore's fall became one of Britain's darkest moments of World War II. Before we reveal the top two, who do you think was Britain's worst general of World War II? Let us know in the comments. The next general made decisions during one of the war's most important battles that historians are still arguing about today. Chapter 2. Bernard Freyberg. Few British commanders entered World War II with a reputation as impressive as Lieutenant General Bernard Freyberg. A decorated hero of World War I and commander of the New Zealand 2nd Division, Freyberg had already proven his courage on the battlefield. His men admired him, and few questioned his willingness to lead from the front. But courage doesn't always translate into successful command. In May 1941, German forces launched Operation Mercury, the airborne invasion of Crete. Before the attack even began, Freyberg had an important advantage. Thanks to British intelligence, he knew the Germans planned to invade by air. The problem wasn't a lack of information. It was deciding where the main attack would come. Freyberg feared the Germans would combine airborne assaults with a large seaborne invasion. So he spread many of his forces across the island instead of concentrating them around the most critical airfields. When thousands of German paratroopers landed, they suffered devastating losses during the first day. In fact, the invasion came dangerously close to failing. But one decision changed everything. After fierce fighting around Malem airfield, Allied troops pulled back during the night. That withdrawal allowed German forces to capture the airfield, giving them a place to fly in thousands of reinforcements. The battle quickly turned against the Allies. Within days, Crete was lost, forcing more than 16,000 Allied soldiers to be evacuated, while thousands more were killed or captured. To be fair, Freyberg faced overwhelming challenges. German air superiority made movement nearly impossible during daylight. Communication between units often broke down, and the intelligence he received wasn't always clear. Even so, many historians believe the loss of Malem airfield was the turning point of the battle. Had it remained in Allied hands, Germany's first major airborne invasion might have ended in disaster. Freyberg's decisions helped cost Britain the island of Crete. But our number one pick never even got the chance to command Britain's 8th Army, and many historians believe that may have been a blessing in disguise. Chapter 1. William Gott. By the summer of 1942, Britain's war in North Africa was hanging by a thread. The 8th Army had suffered defeat after defeat. Rommel was driving toward Egypt, and Winston Churchill wanted a new commander who could finally turn the campaign around. His choice was Lieutenant General William Gott. At first glance, the decision made sense. Gott had spent years fighting in the desert, was popular with his troops, and had earned a reputation for bravery under fire. But not everyone agreed he was the right man for the job. Senior officers, including General Alan Brooke, questioned whether Gott had the drive and strategic vision needed to defeat Rommel. During earlier campaigns, critics believed he had become too cautious, too willing to retreat, and too slow to seize opportunities when they appeared. Before he could officially take command of the Eighth Army, fate intervened. On August 7, 1942, the aircraft carrying Gott to Cairo was intercepted by German fighter planes and shot down. He was killed before ever leading the army in battle. His death forced Churchill to make another appointment. This time, he chose Lieutenant General Bernard Montgomery. Within months, Montgomery reorganized the Eighth Army and led it to victory at the Second Battle of El Alamein, a turning point that marked the beginning of the end for Axis forces in North Africa. Because Gott died before taking command, historians can never know what would have happened under his leadership. But many believe his cautious style was exactly what Britain didn't need at such a critical moment. Some historians have even argued that, tragic as his death was, it unintentionally cleared the way for the commander Britain truly needed. William Gott wasn't the worst battlefield commander Britain produced, but the possibility that he might have replaced Montgomery and failed earns him the top spot on this list. Every general on this list served their country during one of history's most difficult wars. Many showed incredible courage, and several achieved success at other points in their careers. But at the highest level of command, history remembers results more than intentions. Whether you agree with this ranking or think another British general deserved a place, let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more military history every week. Thanks for watching.